We learned from elders. We learned from survival. We learned from each other. For trans guys. Wisdom you can feel. Real talk. Collective care. Welcome to For Trans Guys. I'm Megan.
I'm Zander.
And I'm Jamison Green.
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
It
wasn't just me.
Well, sure.
There's a whole lot of changes going on at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, people did know what I was doing.
Yeah. One of the things when Megan was asking that question originally, he said FTMI also, and it made me think about we're here on For Trans Guys.
Yeah.
And for one reason or another, that's still considered kind of cutting edge, or in some cases problematic. But that doesn't surprise you, right?
Unfortunately, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
We've always been sort of pushed off into a corner.
Yeah.
Even Lou Sullivan, when he's the guy who started FTM, was the name of his organization. It wasn't really an organization, it was a support group and a newsletter. And when he started it, there was just a handful of people. And he had been going to transsexual support groups in the city, and he'd always be the only guy there. Yeah. It's like nobody knows about us, nobody cares, nobody believes we exist, on and on and on. It's just perpetual. And why is that?
Yeah.
I have a number of theories. I don't know if they're true, but I think misogyny is a big part of it.
I've referred to it as just a continuation of sexism.
Yes.
So, it's like, but it's like entering into a room and then being considered less than or not as important, contribution isn't as welcome, but it's coming from people that perceive that that's their experience now, but previous to that, maybe they were able to command a room.
Yeah. And then they don't.
So
want
it's this
us
really
to do
interesting thing that happens internally.
Yeah, they don't want us to have the privilege that they used to have.
It's strange. Well,
but that's
they would deny having it, though.
There's different kinds of ways of looking at what the reasons we're ignored is based on who's doing the ignoring.
Yes. Yeah, because if you think about it, you could say the media.
Right.
You could say the historians, the researchers, the healthcare people. Yeah. I remember once, not that long ago, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, when I moved to Jacksonville from San Diego, I had to start at a new health clinic. And I was scheduled to go see the endocrinologist. And when I showed up, when he showed up, because I was already in the room, right? When he showed up, he made some comment to me about you've kept your beard. Because he thought I was M to F.
I've had that happen too. They say, "Oh, does that mean I said I'm transgender or transsexual, whatever I said at the time." They would say, "Oh, does that mean you're becoming a woman?"
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Quite the opposite.
Right, and then he told me, he's like, "Oh, I haven't had a patient like you."
Right.
But he's the person I was sent to because he was the person.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Nobody knows.
This was 2019, by the way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's persistent.
It's not like it was 1999 or even 2009. I mean,
right.
So it is a little strange that we're still, it's like, as a community, we're still dealing with the same kind of invisibility.
Yeah.
Some would say erasure, just lack of involvement, engagement, being invited in. I find it really strange, and I haven't really been able to make any sense of it at all. But quite for me, it doesn't differ that much from being part of the lesbian community.
Yeah.
In the larger gay and lesbian world.
That's true too.
Yeah.
But I think for some people, completely on the outside of any of this, they think, well, of course a woman would want to become a man because they get everything. They get all the privilege. They get this. They get that.
Yeah.
Everything's designed for them. Yeah. Why wouldn't they want to do it? So everything's
great.
And on the sports side, well, they can't possibly compete with actual men, so who cares about them? So let them try. Let them do whatever they want. Yeah, nice little girl.
Yeah.
Pat us on the head. You know?
And they're not worried about us going into the women's bathroom, even though in some states we're mandated now to go into those bathrooms.
I know some people would be very worried if they saw us in the.
That's right, because they're not thinking about us.
No,
right?
not
The
at
politicians.
all.
That's another level.
Not at all.
Isn't that? I find that really bizarre.
I do too. I think it's just insane.
Yeah.
It means that the entire view of our community is that we are not human. We are completely some kind of abstract construction. That
other.
Yeah, other. We are other. So part of us can be ignored because we're not really present.
I mean, your book, the title is Becoming a Visible Man.
Yes.
Right? And so there's something really important to that word, visible.
Yes.
And you wrote about visibility, and that was a long time ago.
Yes.
And so it's, I wish there was a way.
Not much has changed.
No.
The book has still got a lot to say.
Absolutely.
That speaks to us today.
Yeah, it's one of those timeless books. And nowadays, because of social media, there are things like this day of awareness and that day of awareness and everything, non-binary, like all kinds of days of awareness. I heard the other day, lesbian aunts or aunts day.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like everything. But there's not a trans man or there's no day of awareness for us. And I remember we had some conversations with a few people about, let's see if we can get something going.
And it just died.
Yeah. Because there was something else kind of brewing with this other organization that was more, it was funded, it had graphic artists, and I never really heard anything after that.
Died.
Yeah. So there's something about, even when we're invested in being visible and promoting visibility, it doesn't grab the attention in the same way. And I'm just curious about, even on the talk shows, where very few of us go on the talk shows unless you're pregnant, a twin,
yes.
Or some really conservative religious upbringing, and then probably also a twin, because there was that it was like a double, right, a twofer, because otherwise within our community, there's been a lot of trans women who have been on all the talk shows.
Oh, yeah.
It's only the more sensational stories. Oh, also if you do like adult entertainment, right, you're going to go on the more sensationalistic Maury Povich's,
right.
But just sort of like, tell us your story and bring your spouse. It's so rare.
Yeah.
I remember we had a conversation, we can cut this out if you don't want it, but you had actually been invited to be on a pretty big talk show, but then they replaced you with someone else?
Well, actually, no, we were talking about it.
Oprah. Yeah.
And
I didn't want to say that.
They ultimately brought on a trans woman to speak to the issues, two trans women, to speak to the issues about David Reimer.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
Yes.
You would have been a much better person to speak on that.
I know. Because David's experience, although he was mutilated as a child, and twice, once in the original accident, and then the second time they made him into a girl.
Yeah.
And so his experience as a child and growing up and then having to retransition, if you will, to his original gender, which never changed, was much more similar to a female to male story than trying to make it into, frankly, a penis story.
Yeah.
He had his penis cut off by accident, and these women had their penis cut off by their choice. And how similar is that? No, that is not the story. It is not what David Reimer's story means.
They were not put on estrogens and told they were a girl when they were a kid.
Right.
Now, the title of the book, is it As Nature Made Him?
Yes.
Yeah.
The subtitle is The Boy Who Was Raised as a Girl.
Yeah, I think it's a good read.
Yes. It's by John. The guy's first name is John.
Yeah, I can't remember now.
Search it up, everybody.
Yeah, it's probably over here. Get it.
Of course it is.
Here it is. It's John Colapinto.
There you go.
Colapinto, yeah. As nature made him. Very interesting story. That is interesting because they're based. It sounds to me like they're going to that really essentialist quality of they were all
body.
Males.
It's the body and what makes you a male.
Yeah.
I mean, these are things that we don't actually discuss. We make these assumptions.
Yeah.
1 in every 20,000 XY, as far as we know, male appearing, male identifying, male living person, 1 in 20,000 has XX chromosomes. That's a standard medical urology textbook that is updated on a regular basis. It's been a medical school standard book for decades. And when I did the second edition of Becoming a Visible Man in 2020, I checked that reference again. And yes, the most updated version still has that statistic in the text.
Yeah.
Smith's General Urology.
Yeah.
And it's...
nature's a trip.
Yeah, nature's a trip, and we don't... We make these generalizations about it and think we know the truth. Science cannot tell us what... it has to happen in utero to make a 100% male or 100% female individual pop out. Because they don't know. There is no such thing as a 100% male or 100% female. Your chromosomes aren't it.
I think one of the things that draws me to you in a particular way, because I am a nerdy, overeducated, write books person, is that I grew up in that same time frame of Sally Jesse Raphael is going to feature a trans person and it's going to be whatever is the most scandalous or and so you being a famous person because of your brain, because of your writing, instead of people gossiping about you as the origin story of your being known in the world, that for me personally feels sort of revolutionary.
Oh, thank you.
And that's why you got to have a bunch of books in the background to talk to you.
but I use these books.
Right? No, we've already used at least one. Yeah. But I just think it's that's not a path we see very often in what we are celebrating in today's day and age. Maybe every once in a while, if there is a groundbreaking court case, and then we celebrate that lawyer. And
I'm in the background on some of those cases too, because I help write their briefs.
Yes.
Sometimes,
And give expert testimony.
I have, but I specialize mostly in that regard and in workplace discrimination issues, because I have 30 years in corporate America under my belt. Yeah. And as a manager, a lot of that time as a manager of people, so I understand those things and how things work in the workplace. But not fighting the big issues. I'm not that kind of. I have a PhD in law, but I'm not an attorney. So, but I do help.
Well, I like the idea though that because your situation sort of in trans history is through ideas and fixing things. Mm-hmm. That's the way I would describe it. Mm-hmm. Is typically on our show we might ask people what do you do for your own personal self-care? And you can share that answer later. But what I would love if you could share about is there a thing, either in the history of transness or in any of the stuff that you've compiled through the legal stuff, through the health stuff, is there a thing that folk used to be doing that helped move the needle or create safe space for trans people that you wish we would do again?
Well, the one thing that really made a difference in our history has been communication. And so first, back in trans people were pop up randomly in nature all over the place. Only until the 20th century did people be able to find each other. And that is partly due to newspapers and telegraph. Well, actually, there's probably some in the late 19th century too. But telegraphs and newspapers and things like that ultimately, motivated some people to reach out to find other people like them. And so that, and groups started happening in the 20s, 30s, 40s across this country and in Europe as well, as far as, that's the, in Western civilization, that's what we know about. And Western civilization, too, is the medical model. And so that's the venue, the world in which we live. So it's kind of, and also the internet comes out of that. And that's another way that we learn to communicate with each other. And so what we've lost in the last 20 years has been in-person connection. And particularly with the pandemic, that has had a tremendous, almost negative effect on our ability to grow consensus, to really have a human experience of other people like ourselves, and to learn the difference between ourselves and someone else.
Yeah.
Because right now, all we see, or a lot of what we see, is just two-dimensional images of things that we think we'd like to emulate. Does that mean we're like them? Not necessarily. Does that mean we think that they think everything we think they think?
Yeah.
No. We don't know what anybody else thinks or feels.
No.
And I think that's a real problem that we have right now. And I think I may have gone on to a different direction than what your original
No,
was.
I'm into it. I heard in the breaths between words things about drumming in the woods and being pen pals with other people, but I read that all into what you shared. Like, because I just think that there used to be a way that we had to like go to conferences, like you knew what time of year, what month you had to go to which city if you were going to go to a conference to learn about things. Like for me, like the story is the like surgery show and tells where you could tell which doctor had more dog ears than other or whatever the thing
and
was.
that was the first time we did that, was in Seattle, I recall, and that was all my idea in the moment. I had agreed to moderate that panel, and I just winged it, and that became a tradition.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I loved it.
I mean, because at the time, if you looked up surgery photos, you got brand new surgeries with like scabs and gross. Everyone looked like Frankenstein. And it was like right away stuff.
Yeah.
And this was like people who had healed. It was different kinds of skin colors. It was different
body
shapes and sizes and jobs and like
also different techniques.
Yeah.
Right? There's multiple techniques based on your chest size. Right? I mean, I went to Gender Odyssey in Seattle, and over the course of 10 years, they held 9 conferences because one year they didn't have the conference. And that was right in the beginning. I started, hormones in 2005. I started going to Gender Odyssey in 2006. So that was part of my learning about the community, meeting people, presenting workshops, because I thought I knew things, and but
you still think you know things.
Well, I know some things, but I know now that I know less and less. I think that's just wisdom with age.
Yes.
But that introduced me then to a whole lot of people that were doing like their life, their trans guy life, in a way very different from mine. And instead of thinking, oh, they're not doing it right, or also not thinking, I'm not doing it right, my thought was, well, that's really interesting. Because that guy's got really long hair and plays electric guitar in a rock and roll band, and that's interesting. Like, why would a trans man have really long hair? Right? It was like throwing off my interpretation or my experience even of what I had been exposed to up to that time, because I'd been exposed to very little bit of the community. Even though I was in the San Francisco Bay Area, I was still only meeting a few people. And so I got this exposure to people that were coming from all over the United States, all over Canada, and some people came from other parts of the world.
That's right.
And then you could hear their stories, and you can see that we all look differently. We use different language. The first year I went, it was FTM Gender Odyssey. And that quickly stopped because there was a little bit of a pushback from genderqueer, not non-binary, genderqueer people at the time. And I remember, I think it was 2008, that people were coming into the workshops and disrupting them because they didn't like the
things.
They didn't like the way
body,
things were, When there was a workshop, something like boys to men, they didn't like it. It was they didn't use the word then, but it was too binary. That's how we would say it now. And I remember thinking, I went to 2 or 3 workshops that one year and noticed that this was happening, this disruption, and people were getting upset and walking out. And I went to Aiden Key, the organizer of the conference, and I said, I noticed that at this time of day in that room, there's no workshop set up. Can I do like an impromptu workshop? And he's like, sure, what are you going to call it? And I'm like, the men's room. And he's like, all right. And so I just put up signs all over the conference space, and the room was packed from 20-something-year-olds all the way up to like 60-something-year-olds. And why were they all there? For exactly the same reason. They're like, I'm just a guy.
Right.
I'm just a guy. And they wanted to use those words. They wanted to say I'm a man. They wanted to say I'm a transsexual. They wanted to be able to say that their masculinity was not a performance. Their masculinity was innate to themselves, and they were just, now that they looked like a guy, that masculinity was read in a way that was seemingly performative, but not when prior to transition, it wasn't. And so that's when I knew, like, okay, this is more my space. Mm-hmm. And I just sort of continued on with doing No Apology Necessary, celebrating masculinity, ups and downs of phalloplasty. Like, I just started focusing on that, and people would come in and try to disrupt, but it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work in those spaces. Like, we had learned, like, no. So then people started doing their own workshops. Yeah. Go do your genderqueer workshops. Yeah. That's fantastic. Because now it's Gender Odyssey and everybody can come. Even trans women started to come, even though there were no workshops for them, those first few years. So it's like those kinds of environments, but that came from someplace, right? There was American Boys or Amboys. They did True Spirit Conference, but it comes back to FTMI doing the FTM conference. What was that, 1995?
95 was the first one, and we were able to do that because of a matching grant thing for $500 that Dallas Denny offered.
That's awesome.
Any transmasculine group in the United States could, first one who could come up with $500 to match, she would send the money but we had to commit to, whoever won it had to commit to putting on a conference within 18 months or something of that.
What else was there in 1995 besides FTMI, as far as,
well,
there were chapters of FTMI or at that time?
We didn't have chapters, really, no. Mm-hmm. We basically had the newsletter. And
chapters came later.
Yeah.
But, like, who else would have competed for that $500 match, do you think?
There were support groups, local support groups in many cities.
Oh,
They were, pretty small. We weren't that big either.
Yeah, yeah.
And, there's just, and some of them had newsletters that they would put out, and some of them were also, they participate in IFGE.
Mm-hmm.